Where there is light, there lies shadow. Similarly, for a hero to become great, there needs to be a villain who's on par and challenges the hero to his fullest potential. The Transformers universe is replete with villains who have, time and again, threatened to destroy the universe as we know it. From the terrifying Decepticons to the ruthless Terracons, every villain has stopped at nothing to turn the Autobots into mere scrap metal and wipe away their existence. While some villains are regular in the Transformers universe, some have been forgotten, despite standing their ground as some of the deadliest bad guys the Autobots have encountered. One such force of hell is Magmatron, who filled the shoes of the Emperor of Destruction after Galvatron. Although, unlike his predecessor, he was reasonable when facing situations, which made him really fit the description of a menacing antagonist in the franchise, and thus really competent at his task of destroying the Autobots.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Origins and Untold Power of Magmatron. Introduced in the anime Beast Wars Neo series, Magmatron replaced the fallen but deranged Galvatron as the Emperor of Destruction, and was quite serious about his apt title. A motivated and fierce warrior, he became the new leader of the Predacons. Magmatron was loyal to the cause of equality for the Predacons on Cybertron, and could go above and beyond to ensure his victory. Not someone who believed in playing fair, but rather playing the odds. He defeated his opponents through petty and deceitful moves to one-up them. He was so charismatic in his ways that even the unreliable Predacons obediently surrendered to his authority and kept to his side even at dire times. He treated his troops of Predacons with respect, which ensured their allegiance toward him. However, unlike his predecessor, who was conquest-driven, Magmatron was hawkish in his strategies and reasonable in his play. With great combat skills, he also had a unique build that could make any of his opponents shudder in terror. In his beast mode, he could transform into 3 separate petrifying dinosaur-like creatures who shared one mitotic spark. These beings were Landsaurus, Seasaurus, and Skysaurus, each made with their own conscious, purposeful mind. They had the ability to charge from different directions, and could perfectly ambush Magmatron's foes. These brutes could also combine and form a single monstrosity called Magmasaurus, and add a different sense of terror to Magmatron's whole personality. When in his robot mode, Magmatron could also wield a sword, powerful enough to slice anything that came his way. He was a Predacon who was big on artillery, and always packed missiles and grenade launchers for his battles. However, despite his long list of fire powers and mad framework, Magmatron was calculated in his demeanor. He had a deep-rooted animosity with the Maximal Supreme Commander, Big Convoy, that goes way back in the day. Although Big Convoy was his arch-rival, he had high regard for him. This long-standing rivalry was based on mutual respect, and Magmatron saw Big Convoy as his worthy adversary. Magmatron stood firm during one of his fights with his mortal enemy on a faraway planet, but he was swiftly incapacitated when Big Convoy used his trusty weapon, Big Cannon. Later, when Magmatron and his crew were stationed on a planet called Gaia, they came across Maximal recruits. Remembering his nasty defeat earlier, he promptly ordered his soldiers to persecute the enemies. Among them was a not-so-brave recruit who was taken hostage and disclosed the whereabouts of Big Convoy and the Maximals. With this information, Magmatron soon made his way to his arch-rival and taunted him for going soft as a teacher, instead of the brave lone warrior he once was. When the Maximals were successful in freeing the hostages from Magmatron, a clash ensued. A furious Magmatron launched an attack on the Big Convoy, but this time was no different for him. He again faced his defeat at the hands of Big Convoy. Assessing how the events were unfolding in favor of the Maximals, Magmatron's deeply committed field commander, Guildart, teleported them back to their headquarters and away from the battle. Aboard his ship named Dinosaur, Magmatron was outraged at his repeated defeat. Tracking his foes, Magmatron soon learned about the Engelmoy's energy capsules, which were released by Nemesis, an artificial planet owned by his predecessor Galvatron. Magmatron swore to obtain all the energy pods as he believed they rightfully belonged to him and the Predacons. He instructed his ship to gather intel on the capsules of Engelmoy's energy, which were scattered across the galaxies. Soon he received a signal that a capsule had been found. He made up his mind to retrieve all the capsules and the glorious powers that they came with before the Maximals could stand in his way. Magmatron was successful in acquiring many energy pods. However, both factions could not keep the energy capsules for long. They were stolen from them by the Chaos Harbinger, Unicron's minions. Magmatron later learned that these energy pods were actually vital living forces for the planet-eating Unicron. Soon, the Chaos Bringer claimed Galvatron's lifeless body with the help of the Engelmois energy capsules. Unicron was reborn, and then went ahead to unleash his brutality. Magmatron realized that he had awakened a beast, but nevertheless challenged Unicron. Unfortunately, it did not end well, neither for the Predacons who were defeated, nor for Magmatron, who found himself trapped somewhere in space and time. However, he managed to free himself and decided to face the one true villain. After Unicron possessed Victor Sigma, Magmatron aided Big Convoy and fought side by side to defeat their mutual enemy. Big Convoy then used the Matrix to transform his weapon into the lethal Matrix Buster, which could even make God pause when faced with it. Unicron stood no chance against the deadly weapon and perished. With the threat gone for good, Big Convoy and Magmatron decided to form an alliance and put their differences aside. This union slowly but surely rebuilt Cybertron from the ruins of war. The threat of Unicron no longer loomed over them, and the partnership between Big Convoy and Magmatron brought about a new era of peace and prosperity for Cybertron. Unfortunately, after this, the Predacon leader rarely made few appearances in the Transformers franchise. 2006 IDW Beast Wars. After the show ended, the IDW comic introduced Magmatron in the comic titled Beast Wars: The Gathering. Magmatron was sent to Earth by the Tripredacus Council to capture the rogue Megatron after Ravage failed to do so. So Magmatron, with his tight-knit group of loyal Predacons, traveled back in time to the primitive Earth to pick up from where the previous agent failed. But he had his own goal in mind, which the Council was unaware of. He wanted to locate a maximal exploration vessel called the Axelon, which carried stasis pods across the galaxy. After acquiring the pods, Magmatron would then turn their protoforms into Predacons, thus raising an army of his own, which he would use to overthrow the Maximals. However, his plans were thwarted by the undercover spy in his crew, Razorbeast, who was assigned by the Maximal leader Leo Convoy. Razorbeast modified the operating system for the protoforms, which resulted in producing Maximals rather than Predacons. Razorbeast broke loose, and even Magmatron's different forms could not prevent him from escaping. He then turned his focus on recovering the spark of Ravage, which was then brought to life with the help of an empty protoform. Ravage was reborn, this time stronger and life-threatening, into a Transmetal 2 body, with the intention that he would help Magmatron hunt down Razorbeast. Magmatron then proceeded toward his designated mission, to distract the Council's suspicion. He was successful in capturing Megatron, and was prepared to take him back to the future. However, he was interrupted when an unexpected aid in the form of Grimlock intervened. When the Predacon schemer was battling his new foe, Magmatron's transport was sabotaged by Razorbeast and Optimus Prime. However, when Optimus was sending Megatron to his own timeline, Magmatron intervened and ended up stuck in a temporal limbo. The story continued in a follow-up series titled Beast Wars: Ascending, which saw still Magmatron in a limbo. Though he was able to cross anywhere in space and time, all he could do was observe the events, but was unable to interfere with what was to come. Among this, he witnessed the inevitable destruction of Cybertron at the hands of Shockract, who was once a lowly Predacon, but was now energized by the Engelmois capsules, which were used to retrieve the malevolent Unicron. Upon seeing this, Magmatron, from his space prison, sent a distress call to the Maximals, and warned them of the imminent danger on Cybertron. When Ravage tried to disrupt the time stream to free Megatron from his Maximal captor, Magmatron warned him about the impending doom of their home planet at the hands of the Chaos Bringer, and suggested he join the Maximals to prevent the end of all things. Upon receiving the call from Magmatron, Leo Convoy made his way back to the prehistoric Earth, along with his troops. There, they fought with Unicron's minions, and were successful in bringing a few warriors back to Cybertron, just in time to fight Shockract. He was joined by Ravage, who brought with him a group of Maximals and Predacons to fight their common rival. During the battle, Shockract was shunted to Limbo, where Magmatron showed him the truth of Unicron's long haul. He showed him how Unicron viewed Shockract as a mere pawn for his return, and would eventually obliterate him when he was done getting his way. Upon knowing the truth, Shockract destroyed himself, foiling the grand plans of Unicron, and also freeing Magmatron from Limbo, who returned to normal time on his home planet. Although every war ends with the reassembling of the broken pieces left in its wake, Cybertron was once again saved from its cataclysmic end. Beast Wars Uprising. Magmatron made one of the rare appearances in the comic titled Beast Wars Uprising, with the story named Intersectionality. It was undoubtedly the darkest and most extreme approach in the Transformers universe. It presented a dystopian Cybertron, where the Maximals and Predacons were treated as second-class citizens, created by the builders of the planet to carry ahead their conflicts. Here, the character of Magmatron was the chief engineer of the warship called Dinosaur. One day, the ship picked up a distress signal from the prisoners of an alleged Maximal lost ship called Claustrum on the planet LGC 8803. Although reluctant to make a landing, Longrack prepared to make one. Not long after, Dinosaur sustained some serious damage from an intruder ship when it was taking off, but the Dinosaur managed to fight back and gave a befitting reply by destroying the attacker. Upon receiving a transmission of an uprising back home, Synapse, the builder's political officer, began killing the crew on the ship to curtail the sympathetic attitude toward the uprising from escalating. Magmatron was aided by a few crew members who were not very excited about Synapse's ways, and together they safely crashed the ship on the planet LGC 8803. Upon crashing, the ship transformed and opened up into a new colony called the Dinosaur City. Leaving a few members in the city, Magmatron returned to Cybertron to join the Grand Uprising. The defiance was led by Leo Convoy, who wanted to topple the builders of Cybertron from their high horses. He wanted to scrap away the caste-based society, which was corrupt to its core, and build it afresh. Soon, Cybertron was engulfed in war and violence. However, the builders met their fate when their weapon, which they thought could end the war on their own terms, turned out to be self-defeating for them. Once the dust settled, Magmatron was offered a place in the new council, and a Cybertronian parliament was established to usher Cybertron towards a new dawn for the millennium to come. The prolonged and violent rebellion changed the course of Cybertron's history for generations to come. Marvelous verdict. Characters like the very just Autobot leader Optimus and Decepticon Dark Lord Megatron are prominent and famed in the Transformers universe. However, despite his scant appearances, Magmatron has carved his name and reputation in a sea of villains. Magmatron, a decorated warrior general, was both vicious in his ways to gain victory and well-reasoned in his approach. His beast mode, where he could separate into 3 different beings, earned him the name Triple Changer, and added to his already menacing presence. His nickname as the Emperor of Destruction testified to his ferociousness on the battlefield. However, it was the reverence and admiration that his loyal Predacons had for him that made him a true leader in his own twisted sense. On the surface, Magmatron may be seen in the same light as Megatron. Both were cunning schemers who would go to every length to manipulate the power structure to serve their own purpose. They had an enigmatic personality, along with the physical strength to defeat anyone who stood in their way. However, the relationship they share with the power structure differentiates their character from each other. While Megatron was a destructive, warmongering Decepticon who had a more like-be-all approach, Magmatron valued his position in the Predacon hierarchy. Also, Magmatron treated his troops with a more militaristic professionalism, unlike the blunt and roguish ways of Megatron. Although Magmatron hasn't made his appearance in any of the live-action films yet, it would be exciting to see a previously unnoticed villain adapted on the big screen. With characters like Bumblebee getting their own standalone movie, Magmatron could pose 3 times the threat and become just as notable and intimidating as Megatron.
If you enjoyed this video, click on the like button and comment below about which other movie reviews you would want to watch. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.